His heart rate started to go up, and she brings him back after getting those 2 shots, and he's still not 100%. Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I am glad you're here. I hope that you are ready for a more serious topic than maybe perhaps I normally do. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the cost and care of just vet visits for your ferrets, whether that is your routine checkups or whether it's emergency care. I'm honestly gonna focus this video more on routine care than on emergency care. Emergency care is just what it is. It's emergency care. So we can discuss emergency care, and I have lots of videos talking about emergency care because I have a ferret who loves to go to the emergency room. Now, he probably doesn't, but Weasel is, I call him my $1 million baby. He broke his arm when he was 14 or 15 weeks old. He has, what I thought he ate something and he hadn't, but I thought he did, and so that was a very expensive emergency visit. So, you know, those things kind of happen. So I'm going to focus a little bit less on that. But I really want to focus mainly on routine care. Basically, I want to discuss the cost, and I want to discuss things like when you should be taking your ferrets to the vet and how often, vaccines and vaccine reactions, and then just a couple other things I'm going to get into more that are mainly came up and I wasn't typically going to discuss in this video, but after taking my ferrets to the vet, I feel like I just need to talk about it, and I also want to bring it up because I think it's important to discuss. So here we go. Okay, so I want to really just start off by saying this. It's just my disclosure. I am not a vet. I am not a vet tech. I am a ferret owner. So the information that I'm providing you is going to come from 2 places. It's going to come from research that I did on using what I believe are credible sources, from studies, from scientific research, from veterinarians, or it's going to come from my experience. And so if you are unsure about something and you have a situation in your life with your ferret and you don't know if you should call the vet or not call the vet, I highly recommend that you call the vet. It's always going to be better to be safe than sorry, specifically with ferrets. If your ferret is sick, they can go downhill super fast. So don't hold off. If there's ever a time where you are unsure, I highly recommend you just pick up the phone and call. Your vet will be able to tell you if they believe it is urgent enough for you to come in. Okay, so I'm going to start with the basics. And that is going to be that if you know that you're going to get a ferret and you have an idea on when you're going to bring that ferret home, if at all possible, you may want to go ahead and start looking for a vet that treats ferrets. Also, if you have an idea of the date or the time frame in which you're going to be getting your ferret, it may also be wise to go ahead and schedule that first vet visit. If you're bringing a new ferret home, you're going to want to have them seen by a vet. It's recommended within 48 hours if at all possible. Basically, what you're looking to have done here is to get them a clean bill of health, to make sure that they don't have any infections, parasites, that there's nothing going on that needs to be treated, that they didn't come to you sick, or if they did come to you sick, that you're able to catch it and make sure that they are treated. There are some illnesses that ferrets can pass to us, and there are some illnesses that we can in return pass to ferrets. Flu is a big one. You may also be needing to get them a booster shot, especially if they're kits. If you have a ferret, if you already have ferrets at home and you're bringing a new ferret in, there's going to be 2 things that you're going to want to do. First, you're going to want to quarantine that new ferret from your current ferrets for at least 2 weeks. You're going to also want to have them seen by a vet. The quarantine process is really important. Even if you get that ferret to the vet within the first 48 hours, you're still going to want to do that 14-day quarantine. And the reason that you're going to want to do that is because there are some illnesses that can appear up to 6 or 7 days after the ferret has been infected. Meaning, so you take them to the vet, you get them on a Monday, you take them to the vet on a Wednesday, and they don't start showing any symptoms until Friday, and you've already done your introduction, then now you have potentially spread whatever illness that is to your current ferrets. And now, instead of having 1 sick ferret, you have 2, 3, 4. I don't know how many ferrets you have. Also, your ferrets will require, for the first at least 3 years, annual vet visits. So every 12 months, they should be seen by their vet for just a checkup. It is also recommended that by the time they hit age 3, that they maybe get a geriatric exam, which consists of EKGs, blood work, X-ray, like a bunch of stuff goes down in a geriatric exam. Ferrets can live up to 10 years. In the US, a lot of them live 5 to 7 years. There are some that live to 10 years. I absolutely know that, and I'm not saying it's not possible. On average, in the United States, they live 5 to 7 years. And that may have something to do with the fact that most of the US ferrets come from Marshall's farm. And Marshall's farms, as we know, are big breeding. It's a big breeding mill. And unfortunately, they don't really seem to have ferret care in mind as much as they have money in mind. And so while all 4 of my ferrets came from Petco, and they're all 4 Marshall's ferrets, and I love them dearly, what I know now, I didn't know at the time that I got them. So that means that by the time your ferret is 3, 4, 5, that's considered pretty old. There are some vets who consider ferrets that are 3 to be geriatric or senior ferrets. Actually, they consider them to be senior ferrets. I think geriatric is around age 6. Again, this is all dependent on the vet, because there are some vets who consider 3 and 4 and 5-year-old ferrets to be middle-aged. My vet considers my ferrets to be middle-aged, and they're 3. So it really is, I think, vet dependent sometimes on where they kind of put your ferret on the scale. And it also may be dependent on kind of their history and if they're sick or not, something like that. So that's kind of also one of those things where it's hard to say, like, this is a for certain thing, because there's, even in the research from educational institutions, they talk about vets varying on their opinions on what age is considered to be senior and what's considered to be middle age and all that. So roughly up until age 3, you're definitely going to want to take them annually. And then from age 3 going forward, I would discuss with your vet the frequency in which you may need to take your ferrets. I know some ferrets have to go to the vet every six months, or every 6 to 8 months, because they're just older, and the way that ferret illnesses and diseases come up, if you wait a year, it could be too late and you could miss something. So it really depends, but I know for the first 3 years, it's pretty safe bet to say you could take them annually. So that's that. So vet care consists of, your basic routine examination. They look at their teeth, they look at their lymph nodes, they look at their bellies, they, palpitate all their little tummies and all that stuff to make sure everything's kind of working and feels right, nothing is enlarged and there's nothing going on. And then they will also give them a rabies shot. Also, ferrets get distemper. So they start off getting their initial distemper. They get a shot at 8 weeks, 12 weeks, and at 16 weeks. So 8, 12, and 16 weeks. And then after that, they get it annually. Now I'm going to kind of jump into vaccines a little bit. There is lots of information about vaccines, but what I can tell you for sure that will probably be agreed upon across the board from ferret owners is the concern and worry about giving your ferrets distemper and rabies vaccination at the same time, and the risk that poses for your ferret to have an adverse reaction. There is a probability that your ferrets could have an adverse reaction from either the rabies or the distemper shot. Putting them together, those 2 shots, and giving them together magnifies that risk. And so oftentimes vets will give those shots on separate days, a couple of weeks apart from each other. The reasoning for this is it cuts down on the potential reaction, but also if your ferret were to have a reaction, they then know specifically that rabies caused the reaction, or that the distemper caused the reaction. And there are some vets who will give an antihistamine prior to the vaccination, and then they give the 2 vaccines together. So they give the distemper and the rabies shot at the same time, but they give those shots. Before giving those shots, they give the ferret an antihistamine. It's sort of like a preventative. So if there was an adverse reaction, your ferret has already been given a medication to potentially stop that reaction before it can happen. It does not always work, and it is not always successful. So I feel like it's kind of up to you, and it's up to your trust in the vet. I can speak from experience that I had the very first shots that my ferrets got, they got them separately. In addition to your ferrets getting these shots, it is really, really important that you stay at your vet's office for at the minimum 30 minutes after those shots are administered. The reason is that while vaccine reactions can happen for hours after, like they can show up hours after the vaccines are given, the majority of reactions happen between 5 and 25 minutes after the shot has been administered to your ferret. However, there are outliers to that, and there are definitely situations where adverse reactions have popped up at midnight and the vaccine was given at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So it is not a guarantee that 30 minutes, if there was no reaction in the first 30 minutes, that there won't be one. It's just less likely. Also, the other thing too is if your ferrets have had 3 years of getting vaccines with no reactions, that does not mean that on year 4 they will not have reactions. Ferrets can have a reaction at any time. So, I mean, it's really hard to say what's going to happen, but you just have to be knowledgeable of that before you go in to get those vaccinations. And I would just highly recommend that even if your vet lets you leave, lets you hang around for a couple of minutes after, at least 25 of them, to make sure that your ferret is not going to have any adverse reactions. So I had never had any issues with any of my 4 ferrets having a vaccination reaction at all. The first year that the first annual vaccines that they received, we got them in 2 separate visits. Rabies 1 visit, a couple weeks later, we got Distemper. Everybody was fine. We moved the following year, we go to get our vaccinations. We got them where the vet gave an antihistamine prior to the vaccination. The ferrets received both their distemper and their rabies on the same visit. Again, everyone was fine, no reactions. This year, I took them to the vet yesterday. We had, so the way that my vet does it is we do each ferret separately, but they're all with me. So we get Bear out, she gives him the preventative antihistamine shot. She does the examination while the shot kind of takes effect. And then when his physical examination is over, she gives him the rabies and the distemper shot. And then we put him back into the carrier. I bring my stroller because I can see them fully. So when they're getting vaccines, it's really important that you're able to keep your eyes on them for 30 minutes and that nothing crazy is happening, that you can't see them. For me, because of the way the stroller is, I can see inside of it perfectly, so I can't miss anything. So if they start to do anything out of the ordinary, I see it immediately. So Bear goes back into the stroller with his siblings. I get out Weasel. We repeat the same procedure. We put Weasel back into the stroller. We're now examining Lucy. She's examining Lucy. Well, within about, I would say, 5 minutes or less, Weasel starts to insanely scratch at the stroller to get out. Now, Weasel, they don't do that. When they're in the stroller, they may put their paws up to see out, but they never, ever, ever, ever scratch to get out. Not like this. So I said, I think he has to go to the bathroom, which I already thought was kind of strange because, again, I had let them go to the bathroom beforehand. They hadn't really eaten anything since they went to the bathroom, like since they had woken up and went to the bathroom. So it just seemed weird. So we get him out. I put him on the floor. He immediately has diarrhea. He then begins to dry heave, like he wants to throw up. Now, the vet immediately picks him up and she says, I need to give him something. This is a sign of a reaction. And it is. There's a couple symptoms of the reactions that can happen. And I'm going to go over them in a second. So she takes him in the back and she gives him prednisone and she gives him an anti-nausea medication as well, because he's clearly acting like he wants to throw up. His heart rate started to go up, and she brings him back after getting those 2 shots, and he's still not 100%. He still seems a little off. Something is not right. And then he starts to dry heave again, and then he almost looked like he was getting ready to have a seizure. She takes him back out. She gives him a different medication, and I don't, the top of my brain, I can't remember what it's called. It's on my paperwork. It begins with a D. She gives him that. She then had to give him IV fluids because at this point he was very dehydrated. He just was not well. We actually did not put him back in the stroller. I held him. We let him walk around a little bit, and he wasn't really walking very much because by this time he had received numerous shots. Not only did he receive the initial shot and then the actual vaccinations, he then received prednisone, he then received anti-nausea medication, he then received another medication, and then he got IV fluids. So this poor ferret had been through the mill all within about a 15-minute time frame, and my heart just broke for him. And of course he was apparently wiggling really bad, so it took her a couple of tries to get the fluids in him. It was just I'm so glad that she took him out of the room because I would have been, my heart would have broken watching. And like I said, this is my $1 million boy, and this is my Weasel. So I would like to say that I'm surprised that it was him that had the reaction, but to be honest with you, I'm absolutely not. So he starts to, he's really tired. He looks lethargic. He looks exhausted, but that's all normal because of all the medications that she just gave him. He is basically exhausted on top of the fact that the medication makes him tired. So I hold him in my arms the remainder of the visit, and then she starts to proceed to, look at the rest of the ferrets, and I'll just say this. My 2 girl ferrets ended up not getting their vaccinations, and by the time I left the office yesterday, all 4 of my ferrets are now vaccine exempt, where my vet does not feel comfortable, doesn't think it's smart or worth the risk to vaccinate any of them. And I will get into the reason that the girls did not receive the vaccinations a little bit later in the video. The other symptoms that you can look for also, which Weasel didn't have, is full-blown seizures. Your ferret will go into seizures. Their face will swell. They'll start to paw at their face. They could potentially throw up. There's a couple, so you would know. But the thing is that if that happens, if that happens after you leave the vet, you just need to get you and your little ferret to a vet ASAP. Okay, so I'm going to talk about cost for an annual vet visit. Okay, so this is the pricing for Bear. Now, I do get a discount because I bring multiple pets in. So when I bring more than one pet for examination, I get a discount. So, and also, my pricing that I pay in Pennsylvania may be different than your pricing in California, New York, Maine, wherever it is you live. Pricing does depend on where you live, the cost of living, and lots of other stuff. So that's just the way it is. It's more expensive in some places than in others. The examination was $45, so the wellness visit was $45. The vaccinations, the combo vaccination was $25, so the rabies and distemper, and a hazardous waste disposal fee of $6.80. So Bear's visit came to $76.80. Now Weasel, who received an annual vet visit, so that was $45. He received his vaccinations, that was $25. He then received dexamethasone. He also received Serenia, and he received fluids. Now, they didn't charge us for the fluids. The dexamethasone, which I don't know if I'm saying that right, was $18.04, and the Serenia was $18.92. So Weasel's bill was $106.96. So I paid $96 for the Revolution that I got. I got a 6-pack, so that was basically $96, so $100. When I left the vet's office yesterday, my total for 3 ferrets, where 2 of them did not get any vaccinations, was $344.64. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It kind of gives you an idea of the cost for vet care when owning ferrets. I am going to be posting another video probably this evening following this video to discuss the information that I received regarding Lucy and Ruby. I tried to put it into this video, but to be honest, it was causing the video to run really long. And it's a lot of information and it's kind of sad. So I'm just going to separate it to its own video. So I hope you guys like this video. If you did, please click the like button. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe to my channel so that you never miss an upload, and I will see you next time.